Hello, brick sculptors, and welcome to Brick Sculpt. This is Chris, and today I want to talk to you about slopes. Now, I've done a series of videos on this channel talking all about pieces that I wish LEGO would make, and one of the #1 recommendations I get is slopes with studs on them. Now, as you probably know, LEGO makes lots of different sizes, shapes, and degrees of slopes, but one thing that they typically don't do is make slopes with studs on the angled portion. Now, there are different ways to do this, of course, using all sorts of different hinges, but those run into their own kind of complications, mostly filling in the back and the fact that it has the ability to move. But as you might know, they used to, with this piece here. Now, this piece here is piece 6044, and under Bricklink, they call it the Slope 53, 3x1 by 3 1/3, with studs on slope. And they don't make this anymore. This piece came out in 1992 and was retired in 1999. And though Bricklink shows that it might be available in other colors, you're probably never going to see this where it's not black, yellow, or white. Those are the only 3 colors you really see this piece in. Anything else would be extremely rare. So you're super limited on it, mostly because it's from the 90s. All these colors weren't available yet, and it had a pretty short life, only 7 years. Now, I can only think of one other piece that you could possibly call a slope with studs on it, and it actually comes from the old dump truck bucket. That's right. This piece here. I guess both of them, but this one's a lot more practical. This piece here is an inverted slope, and it has 4 studs on it. Now, what is it about these pieces that makes them so special? Well, if you watch my content, you'll know I do a lot of different stuff with technique and math, even though I'm bad at math. But one thing I've covered pretty extensively is Pythagorean triples. And if you want to see my video on Pythagorean triples, I'll post it here as well as at the end. But that'll make this part make a lot more sense if you haven't seen that yet. As we know, the most common Pythagorean triple is the 3, 4, 5 triangle. In LEGO, with studs, we would call that the 4, 5, 6 triangle because of the fence post problem. I explain it all in that video if you want to check it out. But basically, we can have our 3, 4, and the long end here will connect perfectly as our 5. Well, the beauty of this piece is it's a 3, 4, 5 triangle. It fits perfectly. Let me demonstrate. Now, to fill this out, I can take a 1x1 plate with a D-snot piece on it and stick it in the little empty notch here. And now you can see the base, 3 studs long. The back is perfectly 4 studs long. And the sloped face, 5 studs long, making our 3, 4, 5 triangle. This is what makes this piece work where none of these will, because this has a perfect relationship between the base, the rise, and the slope, where they are all whole numbers. None of these are. The faces are always going to be fractions of numbers. Now, what this also means is that you could take this and extend it, and it should work in system. So let's take some bricks, stack them up. The height of this in bricks is 3 bricks and 1 plate. We can put that on the front there. And we can take a second one and stick it up top here. And in theory, this should be one consecutive series of studs. Let's try it out. It fits perfectly. Can you imagine how useful this piece would be if this was a common thing to see in all different colors? And you also can have 2 angles out of it, because nowadays we use a lot of snot technique, meaning we can run it in this angle, but also on this angle. So super useful. Unfortunately, it's pretty limited. I wouldn't call it rare, but let's call it uncommon and not commonly used for sure. Now we can take 2 of these slopes and connect them in the back, and we should have no problem taking some tiles or plates and connecting them this way. This could make for a beautiful slope for something in your city, definitely for a roof. Be a really handy application. but there's going to be no gaps in the face because of the perfect math of that being 5 studs long. Now when we use this piece here, you would think this is a perfect 4 stud long, but it actually isn't. Unfortunately, what happens is, if we look at the edge here, they actually cut the corner there. So if you were trying to line up 2 of these, they're not going to line up and they're not going to connect in the same series of studs, unfortunately. So unfortunately, this piece, a little bit more difficult to work in system. Now, what if I told you that there may be another slope with a stud on it? This one here, the cheese slope. Well, just kidding. Lego hasn't made this piece. This is actually a piece I ordered from Weebrick a long time ago when I ordered my fake obelisk tops. But it's a very commonly asked for part. And I did order a whole bunch of them, and I'm going to do some demonstrations with them to let you guys decide if you think this is a part that Lego should be making or not. Now, my first question when I ordered these was, how does the stud align? We know from snot that snot pieces have 2 different ways of aligning, either top aligning or bottom aligning. These 2 pieces would be an example of bottom aligning. When we line up a plate on them, it's flush to the bottom, but not to the top. You can also have pieces that are top aligning, like these ones. And there's a lot of these out there. These are just a few examples. Top aligning means that the plate is going to line up with the top, but not the bottom. It leaves a gap. It isn't until we get to 2 stud high that we can have pieces that are both top and bottom aligning. So I was curious with this new piece, do they align it with the top or the bottom, or do they put it right in the middle? Because that's going to affect what you can build with this. Well, they put it right in the middle. Interesting. Now, one of my favorite techniques to do with cheese slopes is roofs. And this is the primary roof I use in my cities, where I just build it up with plates. And you have 2 plate height differences between layers, and it leaves a nice little edge where it looks like shingles overlapping. So let's go ahead and try that out with this new piece. Make my stair step, put my studded pieces on top, 2 sides. Let's see how this works out. Now, unless you're doing a construction site or an old rundown barn, this probably isn't going to be the best roof because you have a lot of gaps. It does look really nice though. I could think of some cool applications, but it's going to be a little hard to fill those gaps, especially because they're uneven. They're all at a different height. Now, there is another way to make these roofs where you can actually get rid of this little bump. And the way you do that is by using headlight bricks. You take headlight bricks and you link them end to end like this, and you make a chain of those. Just like that. You now have half plate increments between these, or 4 LDUs. From here, we can plug in some bricks and some tiles, and we can change the stair steps from 2 plates to 1.5 plates on each step. If I make a second one of these, I can now connect these side to side with some plate and cheese slopes, and you can make for a very smooth, flat transition there. Pretty cool. Well, let's try it with the new piece. Same thing here. We have a second one. let's just run some plates across the top. Well, they're flat. They still have large gaps. So it's still pretty similar to this. Now the gaps do give good texture. You could fill this all the way across with these cheese slopes with studs on them, and it would get rid of the gaps. But that will take a lot of pieces. I made another one in gray here, and I thought, well, how can I fill the back of this without using a whole bunch of cheese slopes behind it? My initial thought was this piece here. If we clip this on the back of the tiles, we can fill the gaps. The problem is, I go to do the second row, it fills the top gap, but it leaves a problem in the middle. So it doesn't really work too good. My next thought was jumpers. If I take these jumpers and line them up, it's actually going to cover two gaps with each jumper. And you could reinforce this with a plate on the back as well, but that fills all the gaps. Pretty cool. Another way we could go about doing this is if we make the stair steps bigger. So here we have 3 plate difference between each of the cheese slopes, and then we can overlap our roof tiles. Like that. Now that's a super cool look. I can think of some cool builds to do with that. So let me know below in the comments what you think of this piece. Is this something LEGO should be producing? I do think it has a lot of really cool applications, but I can also see why they're holding off, because it might not fit in system that well. I also would be curious if LEGO did produce this, would they move the stud so that it's flush with the top, or possibly the bottom, or would they leave it right in the middle like that? Let me know what you think below in the comments. Well, that's all I got for this one. I hope you guys liked this video. I hope you found it informative. If you have any questions, please leave them below in the comments, and I'll do my very best to answer them. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. I'll do more just like this in the future, and we will see you next time.